people got very angry last year about plastic and plastic straws. There was a legislation passed that in Britain, plastic straws are basically outlawed. And so I put up a series of Instagram stories effectively with a plastic. I went to Pret and I got a paper straw in a latte, like an iced latte. And then within about 5 minutes, it would inevitably be sort of not a straw.
Disgusting.
Right. So what are your thoughts on plastic?
Oh, I have so many thoughts. So it was so interesting going through that period. Was it sort of 2018-ish?
I think it was actually last year. When it
was
really,
it more recent
really,
than
really
that?
kicked up. Yeah. I mean, it's been
Blue
growing.
Planet 2. Yeah, for sure. I mean, where I noticed it happening first was David Attenborough and Blue Planet 2.
And the seal.
And yeah.
Or was it a tortoise? There was a tortoise with...
There were all sorts of very sad sea life that had various sort of plastic going on in their stomachs or in their noses or whatever. And it really struck a very populist cause of, plastics are the enemy. We need to start a war on plastics.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, like, you know, we've already talked about the fact that I'm a swimmer. Like, I'm all for reducing plastic in the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what was so interesting was that never in my relatively short career as a material scientist have I ever seen a material get so much like public interest and
hate. It had haters.
Hate and anger around it. Yeah. And it's so interesting because I remember, you know, when I was studying at Oxford, I started in 2009. We studied plastics, obviously, but there was no mention of, you know, biodegradable plastics or plastic waste or any of these kind of issues. And then all of a sudden, that's still pretty recent. And then all of a sudden, you know, there's this war on plastic and it's on the front pages everywhere.
There is now a lecture in that course. The last lecture of that course is now
Really?
recyclability. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So my summarized thoughts on plastics are that they are some of the most incredible substances that we as humans have created. When they were first developed in the 20th century, they were the wonder materials that could do everything that we ever wanted. They were strong, they were durable, they were tough, they were extremely lightweight. You can make them transparent, you can make them like colourful. No other material could even come close to what
cheap.
Plastics were able to do. Extremely cheap, like just
hygienic, like
sterilizable,
brilliant for swimwear, very flexible.
Brilliant for swimwear. yeah. Like they were incredible. And so as a result of that, you know, during the 20th century, we saw our whole material landscape shift towards using plastics.
There's almost a pre and post. You know, there's almost like CE of material science, right?
100%. And, you know, some of the impetus for switching towards plastic was economical because, as you say, they're so cheap to produce. But quite a lot of it actually was like performance and aesthetic and fashion. And as I said at the start, you know, you can never divorce material science and materials choices from the societies that those materials are used in. And so plastics are just incredible materials. What has been their downfall, unfortunately, are all of those incredible materials' properties.
Right.
They're extremely durable. They don't biodegrade. They're extremely cheap, so we make loads of them in a disposable way. They're extremely lightweight, and so they float in the sea. And so we get upset when we see sea turtles put them up their noses.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me, the plastics waste problem, which is, of course, a huge problem. No one's denying that.
Massive issue, absolutely massive issue.
Like, it's such the tip of the iceberg for me for a much greater problem, which is, like, the fact that pretty much all of our materials are single use. Like, you know, our mobile phones we use for 2 years and we throw away. There's over 100 different chemical elements in an iPhone. Like, we throw away teapots and like golf clubs, and just because they don't float in the sea, we don't get so upset about that. But actually, it's our society that has created this kind of greed for complicated materials, complicated design, and like a disposable culture that that's the real crux of the problem, I think. And so, yeah, the plastics problem is a brilliant poster child for that. But actually, the problem is far more widespread than just plastic when we talk about materials.